Hi, I'm Andrew McCrae. Welcome to our farm and ranch in northwest Missouri. My great-great-grandfather settled here in 1910, and I'm the fifth generation to grow crops and livestock here. As a farmer myself, I know the highs and lows of this life, the issues we confront every day, some new, some as old as farming itself. This show is a place to talk with farmers and others in the ag industry about topics that mean something to us, topics that can improve the present and future of our operations. This is Farming the Countryside. Garrett Hawkins joins me here on Farming the Countryside, president of the Missouri Farm Bureau. Garrett, I'm glad to be able to visit with you here. I know your schedule's always busy. You're bouncing around everywhere in your role, correct?
I am. It's always there's always opportunity every day in terms of how I serve our Farm Bureau members around the state, and actually started this morning with an American Farm Bureau board meeting. So things are always interesting.
Well, hey, the topic that I wanted to visit with you about is one that I think is on the minds of a lot of farmers and folks in rural America, and that is healthcare. And of course, that's been a big topic, whether you want to go to the government shutdown and the big bill back in the summer and so forth. But here's where I want to start, because some people may not know this about you. You have a tie to the local hospital in your community. You're still a board member, but it's very much a tie to your family, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. So actually, just a couple of weeks ago, our local hospital, Ellett Memorial Hospital, celebrated 90 years of service here in the Appleton City area. The hospital holds a special place in my heart. It was founded by my great uncle and great aunt in 1935. That was when they saw their first patient. They actually moved to Appleton a few years prior to that, bought our farm where I actually farm today, and opened up their first clinic, and then actually converted an old three-story hotel along the Katy rail line here in Appleton, converted it to our community's first hospital in 1935. So my family has always been connected to agriculture and rural healthcare. So it's been a passion of mine. Grandpa always talked about when he returned home from the war, he was in the 753rd Tank Battalion. He was 10 years younger than his sister, my great aunt. He was the farmhand and the ambulance driver. So it truly was a family affair, with Uncle Doc being the chief doctor and surgeon, Aunt Dorothy being the head registered nurse, and then her little brother, my grandpa, being the ambulance driver and then taking care of the farm.
Well, that hospital, of course, Appleton City is not a huge place. So we hear so much about rural hospitals right now and being able to keep the doors open and keep them functioning. And of course, that was a big issue with the big bill passed in the summer, and how rural hospitals are going to close is what's been said. Now, maybe we're going to fix that, or we'll see what problems arise. Just share your opinion. What's going on in Appleton City and other hospitals that size? And are we at risk of losing some of those services, or what do you see locally?
Well, I think we are at risk, and it all depends on your community, the financial state of your hospital. Appleton is not a huge town. We're 1,100 people. Obviously, we're very farming centric, but have some really critical small business here. We're the second smallest critical access hospital in the state with 12 beds. We have an emergency room. We have outpatient services. We have an outstanding rural clinic. I would say for us, going into the pandemic, we had hired a new CEO that was actually born and raised here and worked her way up through the hospital ranks. And she went from being a nurse and putting her way through school to then climbing to be our CEO. We really focused on getting back to the heart of service, focusing on rebuilding trust in our community, putting in place good financial practices. And that put us in a good position going into the pandemic and has really separated us from others. So, right now we're doing well, but that's not the case for every rural hospital. And certainly federal health policy is critical to that. And certainly that played a part in the One Big Beautiful Bill as well. But, for small rural hospitals to survive, you have to know who you are and really focus on patient care and how you serve. And we're always looking for new ways to serve during this difficult time.
I know this might be a bit of a crystal ball type of question, but as you look down the road, do you think there will be things that we have to address federally that we didn't address in the big beautiful bill, as it's known? What's looming out there, so to speak?
Well, I mean, clearly what's looming out there is continued debate about the Affordable Care Act and what's happened in the private insurance market. Clearly, that is important to hospitals when you think about clientele. Having more lives covered that come in the door of our hospitals is really, really critical when you think about services and just cash flow overall. So, for individuals, though, there's much uncertainty. And back when the Affordable Care Act was being debated, Andrew, more than a decade ago, we had thrown a flag then that we had concerns about farmers, ranchers, those who are self-employed, that we were concerned that the situation would actually get worse in the countryside in rural America when it comes to insurance. And certainly that's been the case. The Affordable Care Act has been successful for some, but not for all Americans, and particularly the people that we serve as Farm Bureau members, which then prompted a lot of policy discussion that led to a lot of work in the state capitol the past 3 years.
Talk about some of that work, because for farmers, and I'm included, I struggle to find affordable, and what does affordable mean anymore, but affordable health care as just an individual. How are people piecing it together? How are they making it happen? It seems like the problem is not getting better, it's getting worse.
Yeah, through the years, I'm a little unique that I served as professional staff for Farm Bureau before returning home to the farm and then ultimately being elected Farm Bureau president in 2020. And so I remember hearing the stories of members through the years about concern about their hospitals, concern about getting access to doctors, obviously trying to support nurse practitioners in rural areas. So I had heard all these issues. And once I was elected president of Missouri Farm Bureau, we went to work researching how we could make a difference in the space of improving access to affordable health coverage. And what we learned is that Tennessee Farm Bureau had been doing this for some time, actually for more than 75 years. And since then, over the last, let's say 2018, 2019, we've seen now about a dozen state farm bureaus seek approval within their respective general assemblies or state legislatures to be able to offer health coverage that operates alongside of, but outside of the Affordable Care Act. So it may look a lot like Affordable Care Act plans, but there are different changes that have been made to deem it not insurance, to deem them health plans or health coverage options. And so when we learned from other Farm Bureau members about the success in providing their farm families another option that was more affordable with oftentimes better coverage, we decided to seek that same opportunity here in Missouri. It took 3 years of working with the General Assembly to get it done. But that approval finally came this past spring, and Governor Kehoe signed our legislation into law in our building actually in July. And we've been working since then to get a program off the ground. So it's an exciting time to be able to give people another choice, particularly for our Farm Bureau members.
Do you find, and maybe it's too early to know yet, but is that them providing a better coverage at a better price, you think, than anything else out there?
So the benefits of what we offer, again, they look like ACA plans, but we have more options for our members that they can be adjusted to, or they can pursue plans that meet their family budget and their family needs. So how it looks different than an ACA plan is that any Farm Bureau member that applies for coverage is medically underwritten one time to assess their risk as an individual and as a family. And then ultimately, a decision is made whether coverage is offered. So that's a key distinction from the ACA, in that everybody is offered coverage. With ours, not every Farm Bureau member will this be an option for them. Now, the data shows in the other states who have had this for some time that for every 10 Farm Bureau members that apply, almost 9 are accepted onto their respective state Farm Bureau plan. So it does make a difference in the form of a lot of members who apply are being accepted onto the plan. And what they find is that they're able to get more coverage, lower deductibles, overall better coverage for a better price than what they could on the ACA. And again, the heartbreaking part of this, Andrew, is part of my why was hearing the testimonials of members who had said, my coverage now, or my premium, has gone up 30-40%. I'm now paying $2,500 to $3,000 a month for a high deductible catastrophic plan for my family, and I can't afford this. Like, with the farm economy, I can't afford this any longer. So you see members who are going without coverage altogether, which is extremely worrisome when you think that they could be one health emergency away from losing part or all of the farm. Or you see some members taking alternative means and going the faith sharing route. And I hear from folks that say that that has its challenges too, that they're their own claims rep, that they spend hours doing paperwork, justifying expenses, and seeking reimbursement for medical costs. And so one of the benefits of our plan is, once people are on the plan, as long as they continue to pay their Farm Bureau membership, pay their monthly premium, they're going to stay on the plan. And the card that they receive for our rural health clinics and hospitals, their payment structure looks much like it already is, because we will be in the United Health Network. So it's something doctors and hospitals are accustomed to.
Some of the plans that the state farm bureaus have developed obviously are helping. Let's talk about, though, that there may be some that don't qualify. There's that percentage, and then some states may not have this yet.
Yep.
How do we find coverage for these folks? Because you don't want folks falling through the crack. And I'm sure this is something you talk about not only within Missouri, but just as a whole, thinking about agriculture and farming and the farm industry, of how we get everyone covered.
That's right. So, I mean, the reality is, because of the gridlock in Washington, D.C., that's not just been there this year, but it's been there for years. You think about it, it took a long time for the Affordable Care Act to pass. It was a hyper-partisan bill that passed. And after that, it has been very difficult to make any meaningful changes to address the shortcomings of that law, which is exactly why you have seen state farm bureaus rise up to at least address what they can, and that's at the state level. Insurance is regulated at the state level. It's this quasi thing between, you have federal law, you have state law, all of this nuance, but members ultimately don't care. What they care about is being able to take care of their families, to be able to address this critical risk in their lives that not only impacts, just their family's health, but it impacts their farm and their business. Because it is for some people, a very substantial expense on an ongoing basis to be able to address this risk. So, again, we're at 13 state farm bureaus who have received this approval. The reality is, not every state is going to have a legislature that is going to agree to this. So until we have a Congress that's willing to address the issue of healthcare in this country, I think what you're going to continue to see, Andrew, are state farm bureaus rise up to be able to try to make an effort to provide more choice to the people that they serve. That's the only solution in the interim.
Let's talk about access for just a moment. And we started talking about the small hospital there in Appleton City. I'm sure you hear this from people from time to time that say, well, Appleton City isn't very large. The farm population's gone down. Why do we really need all these hospitals? And you would say back to me what?
When you experience an emergency, trust me, you want to be within minutes of a hospital. I took a fall from the tractor 2 falls ago and broke my wrist. And believe me, I was fortunate that I was 2 minutes from the hospital. I think just in this past year, 2 of my children, we've had 3 emergency room visits. Like, we've done our part to support our hospital this year. But, you think about it, agriculture is a high risk occupation. Unfortunately, you see our fellow farmers, some lose their lives from farm accidents. You see some who are critically injured. You think about being able to access, especially emergency services, in a timely fashion is really important. And even if your local hospital can't maybe address the underlying issue, being able to stabilize an individual to get them to a larger hospital is so important. We have seen it time and time again here in Appleton with different emergencies, and it just underscores why our community is adamant about supporting our local hospital and making sure that the doors stay open, is because any one of us are one emergency away from potentially losing a life or being harmed for the rest of our lives or dealing with an affliction. So we're passionate. We are very passionate about keeping access to services. And that's why rural communities all across Missouri and America share that same mindset of supporting their local hospitals.
The technology side has allowed us to shrink the gap. In Appleton City, I could still have access to a specialist that might be somewhere far away. Is that the reality, though, in Appleton City? Do you have the telehealth ability or some of these other hospitals to be able to do what we think you should be able to do by now?
I'm glad you bring that up, because that's exactly why Farm Bureau has spent years working on access to an affordable, high quality, reliable broadband. You think about it, Missouri Farm Bureau was heavily involved in standing up our state's first office of broadband. And it wasn't just about improving broadband services to the farm or ranch gate. It was making sure first that we have high-speed internet in our rural communities. That's the lifeline ultimately to the farm gate. So making sure that our schools, our hospitals, all along Main Street, that internet access is there. That has to be there first, ultimately, to get it out to the farmstead. Here in Appleton, we have struggled mightily. In fact, at our hospital, telemedicine is one of the biggest opportunities, but our challenge is we don't have reliable, strong enough bandwidth from our incumbent provider to be able to provide telemedicine services that are adequate for our patients as well as providers at a distance. We see tremendous opportunity through telehealth to improve access to mental health resources here in the community through telemedicine. Cardiac services would actually be our number one service that we would first go after if we had access to telemedicine. So for some who are concerned that broadband and telemedicine may take away hospitals or rural clinics, we welcome it because we see it as an opportunity to expand the services that we provide through partnerships that allow people to be able to continue to be seen as a patient here in Appleton, but us being able to tap into critical resources and providers at a distance from here to help our people. It's a challenge.
Right. You mentioned mental health there, and let's spend a moment on that. Always an important topic, but I think it is even more top of mind now. We have tighter margins, especially on the crop side. There's always stressors, but that's not made things easier. Debt is probably rising in a lot of farms just because of the economics. Farm Bureau, I know this is top of mind for you. It's for a lot of folks. Where do we stand right now on being able to help farmers get the help they need? And many of us don't want to let others know that we may need help at times. So that's also a challenge in meeting those needs, isn't it?
It is. Mental health is just a tough topic to talk about, particularly in an industry where we take pride in being tough, resilient. Many of us operate independently on a daily basis, right? We spend a lot of time alone, whether it's in the cab of a combine this time of year or in the tractor cab or in the pickup cab. It can be lonely. It can be very challenging, particularly when you think about just the economics of agriculture today. In our October American Farm Bureau board meeting, the Arkansas president shared that just this fall, there have been 2 young farmer suicides in his state because of farm stress. So mental health is real in agriculture. It's across the board in society, but especially in agriculture because of the stigma associated with asking for help. That's why American Farm Bureau stood up the Farm State of Mind years ago, working with other national partners. That continues to be a very vibrant program that our national president, Zippy Duvall, even shares his personal testimony about his experience. So we are trying to tear down barriers to try to reduce the stigma. Seeking help isn't easy. And particularly when you think about rural communities, you may not have access to that type of professional help. And even if you did, it's really hard. You don't necessarily want someone to see your pickup truck in front of a clinic on Main Street, right? Just for fear of talk. So that's where telehealth, telemedicine comes in as well. When you can have that as another tool. There are also, a number of rural clinics around the state. I just had a meeting with Rural Clinic Association here in the last couple of weeks, where they talk about their operating model, where they can provide access to mental health resources, but also reduce the stigma that it's a broad enough set of services that they're providing that people may not know why your truck is parked there. They just know you're getting help in some respect, maybe a blood draw or maybe a cholesterol check. So trying to find ways to improve access to help meet people where they are is really important. I'm really proud. We have Pettis County Farm Bureau, Andrew. They saw this as a need and they worked with our graphic designer. They were adamant about developing a business card with the number, the hotline of where people can call and where they can go online for resources. So really proud Pettis County Farm Bureau developed those cards so that they can hand those out to fellow farmers, to hand them out at their annual meeting, at different community events, to just show that there are resources available and people care.
One of the things is, getting over the stigma and asking for help. Is the help then out there? For instance, Appleton has a small hospital, but how far do people have to go? And at least my perception is those programs have been some that would have been the first cut, and now we have to try to find those resources. How do we handle those challenges?
Yeah, every community is different. And frankly, when providers are scarce in rural areas, you get on a wait list, right? Ultimately, when you want to see a provider in person. So the good news is health professionals see this as a tremendous need. And whether it's clinics, hospitals, healthcare professionals understand that we have to do better in trying to improve access to services. And, we're going to continue to advocate every step of the way, state and federal level, to express the need and amongst our members, try to reduce the stigma and say it's okay to not be okay. It is okay to seek help. And that's exactly why we're partnered at the state and national level to make sure resources are out there in a broad fashion to meet people where they're at.
Garrett, of course, there's so much that we could talk about under this umbrella of health, but I just want to give you a moment because you deal with these issues all the time, and obviously you're passionate about them. You live them, in a sense, every day. What are the things which you want farmers to know, whether it's mental health, if it's just physical health, it's health insurance, it's access to care? There's so much out there that's important to us right now.
Well, for your viewers and listeners, just my Farm Bureau journey. Like Missouri Farm Bureau was the very first Farm Bureau formed in 1915 that lit a fire, that started a movement that spread across this country. That from the very beginning, we've been an organization rooted in agriculture as farmers and ranchers united to helping our neighbors as well as the communities in which we live, work, and serve. And under my tenure as Missouri Farm Bureau president, we're going to continue to focus on the issues that affect the farm gate, particularly farm profitability right now, but also the quality of life issues. The quality of life issues are really critical as we think to the future and our ability to bring the kids home to the farm or to the community. It's not just about coming home to the farm. It's hard to come home to the farm, Andrew, if the community has died around you, right? Young people want access to good schools, healthcare. They want to see a thriving Main Street. They want to see business. They want to see infrastructure. And so that's why we spend so much time working on this space, because it truly does impact the decisions that those who are going to come behind us will make about returning to the farm. And particularly when we think about health coverage, again, it impacts your bottom line. It impacts risk in your lives. And that is Farm Bureau. We have been doing this for decades of rising up to meet the challenges faced by our members. That's why we actually formed our first insurance company in the 1940s, because our farmers were having trouble accessing insurance products that really met their needs in rural areas. So that was why Missouri Farm Bureau and others saw that as an opportunity to help keep people on the farm and address that risk. And so while we have modernized, we continue to grow. We also stay really true to the core tenets of what our predecessors envisioned for Farm Bureau years ago. And that's an organization that is truly focused on agriculture and the communities that support agriculture.
Garrett, important topics. I appreciate the time to get to visit about them.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. This is so important. There's more work to do in this space, but for your viewers, just know Farm Bureau's there. We're going to continue to advocate on these issues that impact your quality of life, your ability to manage your farm finances, as well as take care of your families. So appreciate the chance to talk about it and share a little family history along the way.